This is HOA consequences. She stole it, then tried to make me the thief. Let me set the scene for you real quick before this gets wild. I work as a logistics coordinator, which means I deal with schedules, vendors, and problem solving all day. I live in Oak Harbor Community Association, a lakefront neighborhood in Seattle, Washington, with strict guest rules and a gate that beeps every time someone rolls through. The HOA here has a reputation for being intense, but I figured I could handle it. I was wrong. "You are going to stop recording me," Lori Hastings yelled, jabbing her finger at my doorbell camera while I stood on my own porch, holding a cup of coffee. She was already mid-rant when I opened the door. The HOA board treasurer, middle-aged, layered bob, tan rain jacket with the hood up, blue bucket hat somehow still on under the hood, and a clipboard she refused to let me see. She claimed she had multiple witnesses and refused to name them. I asked her what she was talking about. She told me the clubhouse pool keys went missing 2 days ago, and someone saw them near my property. I told her I did not take any keys. She told me refusing her search request meant guilt. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. She pulled out a violation notice, already printed, already dated 3 days earlier. I looked at the date and told her I never got this. She told me it was posted on the community portal, and that was sufficient notice per the bylaws. I checked my phone right there. Nothing. She smiled and told me the portal sometimes has delays, but ignorance is not an excuse. That was the frame-up. She backdated the notice, so it looked like I ignored a deadline. I did not even know there was a deadline. The notice said I had to provide proof of my whereabouts during the key theft window or face guest parking revocation and visitor access suspension. I asked her what theft window. She told me she is authorized to decide evidence, not management. I told her I would file a dispute with management. She told me, "Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that." Then she walked off, still holding the clipboard, and got into a golf cart parked at the curb. The golf cart had a little Oak Harbor decal on the side. She drove off slowly, filming me with her phone the entire time. I went inside and pulled up my work calendar. The key theft happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at a vendor meeting across town with 3 witnesses and a signed delivery log. I had proof. I sent the screenshots to the management office email and CC'd the HOA board. I got an auto reply. The office was closed for the day. I realized the management office closed at 4, and it was already 4:15. Lori knew the timing. She delivered the violation right when I could not respond in person. The next morning I woke up to another notice taped to my door. This one said I missed the cure deadline, and my guest parking privileges were suspended immediately. I called the management office. The receptionist, a woman named Claudia, told me she saw my email, but Lori already submitted a compliance report and the suspension was active in the system. I asked Claudia if she could override it. She said she could not without board approval, and the next board meeting was 2 weeks out. I asked if I could submit a dispute packet in person. She said yes, but I had to do it today before 5, because the office was closing early for a staff event. It was already 9 in the morning. I had until 5. That was my time pressure. I printed everything. The vendor meeting sign-in sheet, the delivery log with timestamps, a screenshot of my calendar showing I was not even in the neighborhood during the theft window. I also printed the email thread showing I sent proof the same day Lori delivered the violation. I put it all in a binder and drove to the management office. The office was in a small commercial strip near the lake. Claudia was behind the desk when I walked in. I handed her the binder. She flipped through it and nodded. She told me this looked solid, and she would forward it to the compliance committee. I asked her when I would hear back. She said usually 3 to 5 business days. I asked her if my suspension would be lifted in the meantime. She said no. It stays active until the committee rules. I left feeling like I did everything right but still losing. My work equipment was stored in my home office, and I had clients who sometimes needed to stop by for quick pickups. If I could not have guest parking, I had to meet them off-site. That was my stakes. Lori was turning an HOA rule into a harassment tool that interfered with my actual job. 2 days later, Lori showed up at my door again. This time, she had a new demand. She told me the missing item was seen near my property, and she needed to inspect my garage. I told her no. She told me I had to comply or face further enforcement. I asked her what further enforcement. She pulled out a stack of orange warning tags and told me she could tag any non-compliant items on my property as potential violations. She acted like she could sticker anything. I told her she needed management approval for an inspection. She told me she is the treasurer, and that is approval. I told her no again and closed the door. She did not leave. She walked around my driveway taking pictures of my trash cans, my mailbox, my doormat. She was building a case. I pulled out my phone and started recording. She turned and yelled at me to stop. I told her I was on my own property and I could record whatever I wanted. She told me I was creating a hostile environment. I told her she was trespassing. She told me the HOA has easement access to all driveways for enforcement purposes. I told her to leave or I would call the police. She finally left, but not before telling me this was going in her report. That afternoon, I got a call from a tow company. The driver told me he had an authorization to tow a vehicle registered to my address for unpaid guest parking violations. I told him I did not have any unpaid violations, and my guest parking was suspended, meaning no guests parked here. He told me the work order came from the HOA, and he was required to proceed unless I could provide proof of authorization gap. I asked him to hold on. I pulled up the suspension notice on my phone and showed him the date. I told him the suspension meant no guest vehicles were here, so there was nothing to tow. He looked at his tablet and then looked at my driveway. He told me there was no vehicle here anyway. He said he would mark it as a false dispatch and report it back to the HOA. That was my evidence reveal. The tow driver refused to proceed once I showed him the gap. I realized Lori was not just harassing me. She was filing false reports to vendors to create pressure. I called Claudia and told her what happened. She sighed and told me Lori had been doing this to other residents too, but no one had enough proof to make it stick. I asked her what I needed. She told me if I could get a clear incident number tied to Lori's false report, management could take disciplinary action. I called the non-emergency police line and reported the false tow dispatch as harassment. The dispatcher took my information and gave me an incident number. That was my evidence type. I added the incident number to my dispute packet and drove back to the management office. It was 4:30. Claudia printed a new cover sheet and attached it to my binder. She told me this would go to the board president and the compliance committee. She also told me Lori tried to get her to refuse my packet earlier that day. She told the receptionist to refuse my packet and to send me away. Claudia ignored her because Lori did not have that authority. Claudia was my ally. She helped me twice. If you are enjoying this disaster, hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next HOA nightmare. That night I reviewed my doorbell footage. I had a camera that saved clips to the cloud for 30 days. I scrubbed back to the Tuesday afternoon when the keys went missing. At 2:47, Lori walked up to my porch. She was not holding a clipboard. She was holding a shopping bag. She looked around, then opened a package sitting on my porch. Not her package, my package. She ripped the mailer, looked inside, then put the mailer back and walked away with the shopping bag. The timestamp was clear. The angle was clear. She was on camera stealing. I downloaded the clip and added it to the binder. Then I kept scrubbing. At 3:15, she came back. This time, she was holding a lanyard with keys on it. She bent down near my mailbox, looked around again, then walked off. The keys were gone. She planted them. I downloaded that clip too. The next morning, I drove to the management office with the updated binder. Claudia was not there. A different staff member, an older man named Ken, was covering the desk. I told him I had additional evidence for my dispute. He told me Lori was in the back conference room, and I should wait. I told him I did not want to wait. He told me she was meeting with the compliance committee, and it was about my case. I told him that was a problem, because she was the subject of my complaint. He looked confused. I asked if I could submit my evidence directly to the committee. He told me the meeting was closed, but he could add my documents to the file. I handed him the binder. He flipped through it and stopped at the doorbell screenshots. He stared at them for a long time. Then he told me to wait. He walked to the back. I heard voices, loud voices. Lori was yelling. Ken came back and told me the committee wanted to see me. I walked to the conference room. 3 board members were sitting at a table. Lori was standing in the corner holding her clipboard. She looked at me and said, "I am speaking for the community." One of the board members, a man in his 60s, told her to sit down. She did not sit down. He told her again. She sat. The board member asked me to explain the evidence. I walked them through the timestamps, the doorbell footage, the tow dispatch, the incident number, and the backdated notice. I showed them the shopping bag, the keys, the planted evidence. Lori interrupted and said the footage was edited. I told her the cloud service timestamps were immutable. Another board member, a woman in her 50s, asked Lori if she had been on my property on those dates. Lori said she was conducting routine inspections. The woman asked her why she was opening a package. Lori said she thought it was hers. The woman asked her why she was holding HOA keys near my mailbox. Lori said she was checking the key count. The third board member, a younger man, asked Lori if she still had the keys. She said no. He asked her where they were. She said she returned them to the clubhouse. He asked her when. She said 2 days ago. He pulled out his phone and opened a spreadsheet. He told her the clubhouse key audit log showed no return entry under her name. He asked her again where the keys were. She did not answer. The older board member told Ken to call security. Ken left. Lori stood up and said this was a witch hunt. The woman board member told her to sit down and wait. Lori said she did not have to sit down. The younger board member told her if she left the room, they would assume she was refusing to cooperate. Lori sat back down. She was trapped. Ken came back with a security guard. The older board member asked the guard to check Lori's vehicle for HOA property. Lori said that was illegal search. The board member told her it was not illegal because she signed a property access waiver when she joined the board. The guard left. We all sat in silence. Lori kept looking at the door. The guard came back 10 minutes later holding a small plastic storage box. He set it on the table. Inside were the pool keys, 3 sets of clubhouse access cards, a stack of guest parking passes with no readable text, and a handful of small items that looked like they came from the clubhouse storage closet. One of the items was a mini flashlight identical to mine. That was the twist. A neighbor revealed Karen tried to trade favors for testimony. The younger board member asked the guard to log everything as evidence. Lori started talking fast. She said she was holding those items for safekeeping because other residents were stealing. The woman board member asked her why she did not report it. Lori said she was investigating. The older board member asked her why she filed a false report against me. Lori said it was not false. She had witnesses. The woman asked her to name them. Lori said she could not because they requested confidentiality. The younger board member told her that was not how evidence worked. He told her she was suspended from the board effective immediately, and management would file a formal complaint with the county. The older board member turned to me and told me my suspension was lifted, my dispute was sustained, and the HOA would refund any charges related to the false violation. He also told me they were putting a hold on further fees pending review. That was the HOA consequence. The HOA refunds charges and puts a hold on further fees pending review. He told Lori to leave the building. She stood up, grabbed her clipboard, and walked out. She did not say anything. The guard followed her. I walked out into the parking lot a few minutes later. Lori was sitting in her car, crying. A deputy sheriff was standing next to her door. Apparently, Ken called the police when the stash box was found. The deputy asked me if I was the complainant. I said yes. He told me Lori was being issued a citation for filing a false report and theft of HOA property. He asked me if I wanted to press charges for the package theft. I said yes. He told me to expect a follow-up from the prosecutor's office. Lori looked up at me through the car window. Her face was red. She mouthed something I could not hear. The deputy told her to stop, and then told me to step back. 2 weeks later, Claudia called me. She told me the board voted to remove Lori from her treasurer role and ban her from holding any HOA position for 5 years. She also told me the missing stash was discovered during a full audit, and several other residents filed complaints once they realized Lori was behind their issues. The policy clarification that destroys Karen's favorite tactic was implemented. Board members could no longer issue violations without management countersignature. That was the payback vector. Lori lost her enforcement power. The board also updated the guest parking policy to require photographic proof before suspensions, which killed her ability to weaponize access rules. The kicker? A week after that, I got a notice that Lori was being sued by another resident for stolen property. Turned out the mini flashlight in the stash box belonged to someone else, and they had a receipt. Lori claimed she never came by to take it. The resident pulled their doorbell footage. The same move I used. The doorbell video played in the HOA meeting, and everyone saw her walk up, open a bin, and take the flashlight. That was the funny karma beat. Lori claims she never came by, and the doorbell video plays. The final showdown happened at the security office window a month later. I was dropping off a revised contact form, and Lori walked in behind me. She did not know I was there. She started demanding the guard give her access to the audit logs. The guard told her she no longer had authorization. She told him she is speaking for the community. A woman standing behind her in line repeated it back, unimpressed. That was the final humiliation moment. Karen repeats her catchphrase, and a witness repeats it back, unimpressed. The guard told Lori to leave, or he would call the police again. She left. Ken told me later that Lori moved out 3 months after the board decision. She could not handle the looks from neighbors. She tried to sell, but the buyer found out about the theft complaint during due diligence and backed out. She eventually rented the place out and disappeared. The stash box was returned to the rightful owners, and the board issued a formal apology to everyone affected. I kept the doorbell footage saved in 3 places: cloud, local drive, and a thumb drive in a safe. I also kept the incident number, the board meeting minutes, and the refund receipt. I learned that paper trails are undefeated. Lori thought she could manipulate records, backdate notices, and bully people into compliance. What she did not count on was someone who kept receipts and knew how to use them. The missing stash is discovered, the HOA must refund fees, and Karen is removed from her role. That was the outcome. Clean and permanent. Lori is caught with a stash box and cannot talk her way out. That was the Karen consequence. She lost everything because she could not stop stealing and lying. I still live in Oak Harbor. The new treasurer is a retired accountant who actually follows the rules. Guest parking works the way it is supposed to. The board meetings are boring again, which is exactly how they should be. My work equipment stays in my home office, and my clients park in guest spots without drama. Claudia still works the front desk, and she still slips me a heads up when something weird hits the compliance queue. The golf cart Lori used to drive around is now used by the landscaping crew. The clipboard she always carried was returned to the office supply closet. Every time I see a doorbell camera, I think about how one 15-second clip dismantled an entire harassment campaign. Lori spent weeks building her case against me. Backdated notices, false reports, vendor intimidation, public shaming. She had a system. What she did not have was the ability to see her own blind spot. She never imagined someone would check the footage. She never imagined the tow driver would ask questions. She never imagined Claudia would quietly print the correct form and ignore her pressure. She never imagined the board would actually hold her accountable. The realization that changed everything for me was this: HOA tyrants rely on exhaustion. They bet you will not fight back because fighting back takes time, documentation, and persistence. They bet you will just pay the fine, accept the suspension, move out. Lori bet wrong. I had the time because my job taught me how to manage logistics. I had the documentation because I keep records for work. I had the persistence because she threatened something that mattered to me. She picked the wrong target. If you ever end up in an HOA nightmare, here is what I learned. 1. Save everything. Emails, notices, timestamps, screenshots, doorbell clips. 2. Know the bylaws better than the board does. 3. Find your Claudia. There is always someone inside the system who is tired of the chaos and will quietly help if you give them cover. 4. Do not let them exhaust you into giving up. They count on you quitting. Do not quit. 5. Use their own rules against them. Every tyrant has a favorite weapon. Turn it into their weakness. For Lori, it was backdating and false reports. Once I had proof, the whole thing collapsed. The day the board removed her, I did not gloat. I did not post on social media. I did not tell the neighbors. I just went home, made dinner, and slept better than I had in weeks. The win was not the drama. The win was getting my life back. No more surprise knocks. No more golf cart surveillance. No more threats to my work setup. Just normal, boring HOA life. Lori tried to make me the villain in her story. She framed me as the thief, the problem resident, the one who would not cooperate. She told people I was hostile. She told vendors I was non-compliant. She told the board I was a risk. What she actually did was hand me a case file. Every lie she told, every false report she filed, every rule she twisted became evidence. By the time I walked into that conference room, I had a binder full of her own mistakes. She built the trap. She walked into it. I just closed the door. The moment that stays with me is not the stash box reveal, or the board vote, or even the deputy writing the citation. It is the look on Lori's face when the younger board member pulled up the audit log and asked her where the keys were. She knew. Right then, she knew it was over. She could not talk her way out. She could not blame someone else. She could not claim a misunderstanding. The log did not lie. The footage did not lie. The incident number did not lie. She was caught, and she knew it. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No big announcement, no apology letter, just a line in the board meeting minutes about personnel changes and policy updates. The neighbors who supported Lori stopped mentioning her. The neighbors who got hit by her enforcement spree started comparing notes. A few of them reached out to thank me for fighting back. One guy told me he paid $300 in bogus fines because he thought it was easier than disputing. Another told me Lori tried to tow his truck twice for parking violations that did not exist. The pattern was everywhere once people started talking. The policy clarification did more than stop Lori. It changed how the whole HOA operated. Now every violation required countersignature from management. Every suspension required photographic evidence. Every inspection required written notice and owner consent, unless it was an emergency. The board could not just steamroll residents anymore. It was not perfect, but it was better. A lot better. Ken told me months later that the audit revealed Lori had been skimming petty cash from the clubhouse fund. Not a lot. 20 here, 50 there. Enough to add up over time. The board referred it to the county, but I never heard if charges were filed. I did not follow up. I got what I needed. She was gone, and the system had guardrails now. I still check my doorbell footage once a week, not because I am paranoid, because it works. That 15-second clip did not just clear my name. It ended a campaign. Lori spent weeks setting me up, and one doorbell camera took it all down. That is the power of evidence. It does not care about authority. It does not care about bylaws. It just shows what happened. The day Lori moved out, I was working from home. I saw the moving truck pull up. I watched them load her furniture. I watched her get in her car and drive away. I did not wave. I did not watch from the window like some neighbors did. I just kept working. The chapter was over. The nightmare was done. I hope your notices stay non-existent.